Welcome to the Texas Talks podcast. I'm your host, Brad Swale. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming to the show Tanner Jones. He's the CEO of Vulcan Technologies and AI for legal cartography. Tanner, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, Brad?
Doing great, man. I'm excited to talk to you. This is going to be, I think, a unique conversation in the universe of Texas Talks. And I'm curious to know what legal cartography is and how AI is playing a role in that. But I gave a really brief intro about who you are. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I can kind of take those in order. I think I'll tell you a little bit about what legal cartography is and then segue into why I started this company. Legal cartography is exactly what it sounds like, mapping the law. So imagine a cartographer would help us understand a geographic space. Legal cartography helps us understand the law. And in the United States, we're blessed or cursed, depending on who you ask, to enjoy or endure three corpuses of law. We have the Article 1 law, the statutory law, bills that are signed into statute. They pass through the legislature and are either signed by a governor or president or via a veto override back through the legislature, get into the code. We have Article 2 law, and these articles I'm referring to the U.S. Constitution. Article 2 law, everything coming out of the executive branch agencies, so regulations namely, but also guidance documents and memos and documents incorporated by reference and so forth. And then Article 3 law, jurisprudence, what the courts are telling us. We have this at the federal level. We also have it in all 50 states. And then there's a municipal flavor here too, where it doesn't look exactly the same, but we have roughly this three-branch style of government everywhere, and each is producing over the course of our history, millions and millions of words of binding law. And so the work of a lawyer is navigating, being a cartographer through these different corpuses to help us answer any legal question. By way of background, I spent my entire life planning to be a lawyer. So, was big into high school debate, attended Dartmouth at the behest of the debate coach. It was the top collegiate debate school at the time. Although I quit the team my freshman year, and then they won 2 national championships right after. So they didn't need me on the team. The plan was always to go to law school. But, there are these interesting structural factors, headwinds really confronting the law. We can get into those. But the idea here was, what would a very useful AI tool be able to do to help assist legal professionals, or more interestingly, in my view, assist people who would otherwise hire or retain legal professionals. So in the age of an LLM, do I need to hire a lawyer? Do I need to hire a compliance consultant? Or can I use a tool that can do legal cartography, that can navigate between legal corpuses to help me answer a legal question?
So I definitely want to ask you, in the age of LLMs and AI, do I need to hire a lawyer? But we'll get there. So I get it. Based on what you're describing, my understanding is, I live in Austin and I want to, I'm trying to figure out what regulation applies to me in whatever business I'm doing. And Vulcan Tech is producing an AI that will tell me, all right, this is what I can do in the United States and in Texas and in Austin specifically.
Bingo. Yep.
And if I lived in Austin, I don't know anything about Houston, for instance, or maybe I want to go across state lines to Santa Fe, just picking, cities off the top of my head, whatever. Yeah. It'll, again, U.S., New Mexico, Santa Fe, and it'll tell me what I can do and can't do.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah. And if you think about, really one of the reasons we're motivated to build this company so fast and just closed a big seed round a couple of weeks ago, is because this is the bottleneck to U.S. competitiveness. This is an American problem. It's not a Chinese problem. It's very, very hard for us to grow and expand in the most critical industries. Say energy, for example. It's very, very hard to be energy abundant in this country. There's a 50-state patchwork of regulations. So let's say, to your example, you're drilling in Texas, and now you want to open an operation in New Mexico. You're an entirely new legal jurisdiction. Before you can even begin to move in that industry, you're first spending hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions of dollars in legal and consulting fees just to figure out and discern how to legally move in that new jurisdiction. And the Chinese don't have this problem. So you look at the charts, you can just stand up nuclear power plants seemingly wherever you want in China, which is not what we want in the US, but it should be a lot easier. And so our tools are trying to help builders and innovators and disruptors find the legal pathway to grow the U.S. economy.
So I know you're not praising the Chinese system, but it is much easier there. Why is it easier there compared to the United States?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of reasons. Number one is that the CCP can just shovel cash. There isn't really a price mechanism in the same way there is here. And now, mind you, this is coming from an undergraduate course I took on the political economy of China several years ago. I'm not an expert on Chinese geopolitics.
Well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily be China specifically. I guess the question could be, whatever the competitor is, and I think I don't think it's wrong to think of the rest of the world, every country being a competitor in some sense. We want our economy to grow. That doesn't mean that we don't want theirs to grow, but just to focus on us, well, I could do it here, or I could go to Mexico or China or Canada or whatever.
That's totally right.
Wherever it's easiest. So why is it? So is it purely just that patchwork? And this is, you've created a tool just to navigate that patchwork.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, on both sides. So the tool is essentially the AI administrative lawyer, the AI regulatory lawyer, in a simple sense. These are the lawyers that traditionally are retained both by industry, trying to understand their regulatory burdens, and really do three things. Number one, we call it the three C's. So the first C is compliance. Just like, what do I need to do to not go to jail, to not be fined, to not endure massive fees? What do I need to do to comply? The second is comment. So what are the regulations coming down the pipeline, state and federal, that are being proposed by the agencies that are going to affect me, and really I should be commenting on, using the notice and comment process that we all enjoy as Americans during the regulatory process, but most people don't use. Most firms don't even know it's happening. And then third is contest. So particularly if I'm a bigger firm, if I have a team of litigators, and I think the government's overstepping, they're telling me I need to do something, and the legal grounds are a little bit shaky or flimsy. I can contest that and maybe push back against that. So that's on the private sector side. But these same lawyers and consultants are also retained by the government. And, maybe this should be more upsetting to people. We're setting, millions at the federal level, billions, tens of billions of dollars on fire, retaining consultants and lawyers just to help agencies figure out the lawful path to implement policy. So think about that. We all vote for representatives, senators, governors, presidents, state and federal, and they're constantly changing the law. And then it gets to the agency state, the administrative state, and their job, seemingly, although the Constitution is actually silent on most of the questions about the Article 2 administrative state, their job is to interpret the statutes and executive orders in terms of, enforceable action. At some level, this makes sense. So the real explosion of the administrative state happens in the 70s federally after the Clean Air Act. And the Clean Air Act, says let's have clean air in the U.S. This is reasonable. Almost everybody can get behind this. You don't want to be coughing, walking through the streets of a big city in the U.S. But then it's on the agency to actually figure out what that means. How many parts per million of certain chemicals are allowed in the air? What's permissible? And if you violate these standards, what happens? Do you get in trouble? Do you get fined? Does your business shut down? When is it appropriate for the government to exercise coercive force? And then these get litigated, and then the courts say, that was okay, that wasn't okay, that was okay, that wasn't okay. But for the agencies to even figure out how to exercise the law, they're spending a lot of money, our money, on lawyers and consultants to do so. And so not only do these tools help innovators and disruptors build and grow and find the lawful path to do so, and there's not this massive legal barrier to entry to do something new in this country, but also on the government side, we're helping give the agencies and the elected officials and their political appointees the path to actually use the levers of government to do what they were elected to do.
Yeah. So as the regulatory state can be pretty, I don't know, it can change pretty quickly. Sometimes not. I know that I think it was Trump in his first term. I think he did an executive order that for every new regulation, two had to be
2 for 1. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 for 1. A lot of people supported that, but that can sort of change the regulatory landscape pretty quickly.
Yep.
How does your Vulcan Tech AI, how does it learn on the fly? How does it update itself?
Yeah, great question.
Maybe that's a technical question.
I think I can answer. Yeah, it's easier than you'd think. I mean, really, there are 3 layers to our products.
Yeah.
So the bedrock is just the legal corpus. You need everything.
Yeah.
So every statute, regulation, and court case across all 50 states and the federal government is in our system. And I'm blessed to have some amazing engineers that I work with who all day, every day are monitoring the entire corpus of U.S. law across every single state, across every jurisdiction, and making sure that our database looks exactly the same as the binding law that's on the books.
Yeah.
In some cases, this isn't online. You have to physically go to a courthouse and go into the court library and get the decisions and the writings and all the different petitions and so forth. And so this is not an easy problem. I mean, LexisNexis and Westlaw have solved this problem, 20 years ago, but we're trying to do with AI. Then the second layer are agents. These are calls to large language models with very specific prompting, and using a medley of different LLMs. The different LLMs have different strengths and weaknesses. And then these agents navigate through the legal corpuses to retrieve the right information, answer the right questions. And then the final layer is the interface. So what a customer would look at, whether it's someone in a government agency or someone in regulated industry.
Yeah. So there's always work being done behind the scenes to make sure that, I don't know, the if I live in Collin County in Texas, I don't know or Pecos County, super West Texas. I think 100 people live there. I don't even know if their systems are online or not. I hope they are, but if they're not, someone's got to go out there and figure it out and scan them in.
Yeah, and admittedly, I don't think we have Pecos County in our system right now, so we need to fix that. But
yeah. Well, I would. It's kind of wild that you would even know off the top of your head if you do have Pecos County or not. There's lots of counties in the United States. So how does this differentiate between a regular, and I say regular, I'm not an AI expert. Yeah. A regular LLM, large language model.
A chatbot, just GPT. Yeah. Great question. I mean, I think the off-the-shelf chatbots are great. I mean, they're these very powerful dialectical tools. You can ask a question, you can iterate on ideas, and these companies are doing unbelievable things. I mean, they're doing these several billion-dollar training runs to unlock, these massive new algorithmic improvements with each model, each iteration. And I mean, if you look at the stock market, seemingly the entire market right now is held up by this feedback loop of OpenAI and Oracle and a few other firms. And it's like, these are really, really important firms, and they better be doing well. Otherwise, all of us are going to hurt. And so we leverage these tools. I mean, we're not training our own LLMs. And if you look, I graduated from the summer Y Combinator batch. If you look at the Y Combinator companies for the past couple of years, and this is essentially the elite accelerator for very young companies, almost all of them are building tools on top of these LLMs at the application layer. Very few firms are training their own LLMs, and those that are trying are failing unless they have billions of dollars. I mean, the only one who was able to really successfully jump into the game late was Elon Musk. And he just shoveled a ton of cash to create an unbelievable LLM that could compete with Anthropic and OpenAI. But it's basically Anthropic, OpenAI, XAI, and Google's Gemini. And those are the 4, and then the big step change and everything else. And so our tools are built on top of these models. Okay. So, I'm imagining this. I'm a state lawmaker, or I'm a developer. I want to build I want to tear down the building that we're in right now and build a skyscraper. I think that's a great idea. I can go to Vulcan Tech, and as a developer, I don't know. I guess I just ask a very straightforward question. I want to build a skyscraper at this address in Austin, Texas, and Vulcan Tech, the AI can give me an answer about the viability of that. On the other hand, if I was a local Austin official or a state lawmaker, I may be able to ask the question the other way. Is that's right? What's the legal argument against it? Yeah. Does it push out two different? Can it push? If I ask it, what's the legal argument for and legal argument against? Will it give me two different answers? Yeah. I mean, yeah. We have a chatbot. Like a lawyer. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I think probably one thing for useful context is there are really three variables you want to think about when you're thinking about an AI tool. Three variables you're trying to optimize for. Number one is the data. So what is the data that the model is actually allowed to look at?
Yeah.
You'll remember when the early Gemini models were producing pictures of black Nazis and black founding fathers and so forth.
Yeah.
They were looking at the wrong data.
Yeah.
So data integrity is very important. That's why the bedrock of our tool is this scraping of the entire corpus of law, and the models are only allowed to look at the law. That's not the internet, not Reddit, not Yahoo Answers, whatever.
Right.
The second is the model. So what model are you using? And models have different strengths and weaknesses and different levels of intelligence.
Yeah.
There's a model that can ace the LSAT. There's a model that gets a 140 on the LSAT. Different level of IQ essentially.
Sure.
But one's going to take 2 minutes. One might take 15 minutes. But there's different kind of trade-offs depending on the task.
I feel like if you get a 140 on the LSAT, even if it takes you 15 minutes, you have pretty high IQ.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's right. Maybe that's the world we live in now, right? Like, yeah, 15-minute LSAT is pretty crazy. Glad that those LSAT days are behind me. But yeah, and then the third thing is kind of creativity. Although this is changing, but you can in some of the models you can change the temperature where you say you can be really really creative. And that's where we were getting a lot of hallucinations with some of the chatbots a year ago. Yeah. Or you just say, no, you're not allowed to be creative at all.
So in the case of, I guess I'm imagining this in a situation like I described. A local official and a developer are on different sides of the exact same issue. And they're both using Vulcan tech.
Yep.
And they're both asking the question just from different angles. If I was a developer, I could also ask it from the angle of the local official and see what arguments they're going to have. And so we're both using the same tool.
There is a ground truth. I mean, the arguments are different than truth, So
sure.
I think we've basically got three tools. One of them is a chatbot. Another one is a kind of a deep legal research tool. And another one is a drafting tool where it looks a lot like Microsoft Word, but it helps you draft legal documents, revise regulations, and so forth. You could ask what are arguments in favor or against a certain policy proposal, but frankly, you'd have just as good of a time asking GPT or asking Claude that.
Sure.
What our tool is really good at is trying to ask a precise legal question. So under Austin, under the Austin Municipal Code, pursuant to the Austin Charter, and also bringing in Texas state law and perhaps relevant federal law, what are my constraints if I want to rebuild the building at this exact address?
Yeah.
And it's going to be able to tell you with precision that exact answer. And that's the same information that would be useful to the guy in the city office as well.
Okay, interesting. So I know that the governor of Virginia signed an executive order recently requiring all state agencies to use your platform. How did that happen? That's I think a pretty big win for Vulcan Tech.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big win for the people of Virginia. Frankly.
Well, sure, yeah. I didn't mean to say
No, I know. It's a big win for us, too. Don't get me wrong. It's a great responsibility. Yeah, so I can give you a little background on this. And first of all, massive props to Governor Youngkin and his entire team. He's an unbelievable leader and governor. And I'm not a terribly partisan person myself. I've spent time on both sides of the aisle and, in my career. But Youngkin's a very impressive governor by all stretches. Former CEO of the Carlyle Group, really, really smart guy, and singularly focused on bringing down costs and making it easier and cheaper, more affordable to be a Virginian. This really his goal.
Yeah.
And his success metrics have been things like average cost of a new home, net inflow of people into the state, things like this. So very interesting metrics-oriented guy. His first executive order when he stepped into office several years ago was this administrative state reduction thing, where he was looking at the regulatory code in Virginia and saying, it's gotten way too big and it's gotten way too expensive to be in compliance, to start a business, to build a home here. We need to reduce it by 25%. Now, at the time, now Texas has kind of a similar thing with TRIO. Several other states have kind of echoed this. Texas did it in its own uniquely Texas flavor, which is exciting. We can get into, but a 25% reduction in the regulatory code is kind of insane.
Yeah.
I mean, And it's also really hard to do. You can't just randomly go into the regulatory code and like randomly mark up 25%.
Yeah. Or you can't take the first 25% or the last 25%.
No, exactly.
Yeah. You have to.
And it's and if you did that, you would get in huge trouble. Some clauses are required by federal law.
Yeah.
They're required by federal funding. Some dollars flowing in from federal HHS.
Yeah.
And if you delete this part of the reg code, you lose that money. Some of it's required by the Virginia Constitution, Virginia statute, Virginia courts. And so just typically what you do is you'd hire Deloitte or Accenture, KPMG, or retain Gibson and Dunn or Kirkland and Ellis, and they would help you figure out what you can keep and what you can delete. And in fact, this is what they were doing. We basically found out they were about to sign a big deal with Deloitte, and we just came in and said, this is going to be 1/10 the price.
Yeah.
And, God bless them. They took a risk on a 10-day-old company. And our pitch was basically like, we think we're the guys to do this. We're smart guys. Like, we demoed the tool and it was ready, whereas Deloitte said it's going to take us 6 months to get it ready.
Yeah.
And by the way, you'll be paying us for that whole 6 months.
Yeah.
And then it was also like, and if it doesn't work, at least you save the Virginia taxpayer some money for 1 month, and then you can go back to Deloitte.
Yeah.
But they loved it. It worked. The tool went in and goes literally clause by clause and tells them, this is what the law requires you to do. This is what the law says you can do, but you don't have to do, so you have discretion. And then this is what the law actually doesn't let you do, but you're doing. So we're finding clauses that point to repealed statutes that the agencies are still enforcing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Or point to a bunch of Biden executive orders that were vacated on day one of the Trump admin, but are still on the books at the state level. By the way, this is a huge problem in Texas. And so Governor Youngkin loved it. He has an amazing team out there of just brilliant people. Honestly, a bipartisan group of really brilliant, just smart people who care about Virginia abundance.
Yeah.
And then about 2 months into the deal, he signed that executive order saying every agency must use agentic AI regulatory review, which, not to be immodest, but nobody had said those words in that order before our company.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I think it's really interesting that that it spit out, these are the things that you're doing, but you can't be doing, that it's illegal for you to do.
Yeah.
I feel like that should be public knowledge and there should be some sort of recourse.
Yeah. I mean, essentially what we were telling and there was a lot of pushback against this, mind you, but essentially what we were saying was, if some aggrieved plaintiff in Virginia sued you, you would lose.
Yeah.
Like government agency, you would lose.
Yeah.
Because you are claiming that you have authority from a statute that was repealed 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But this is happening. And we've audited several administrative state rule books across the country. We're finding that on average, 1 in every 20 state level regulatory clauses is unlawful. It points to a repealed statute. Or another example is the statute says $200 fine, and then the agency is levying a $1,000 fine.
Yeah.
Something like this.
Yeah. 1 in 20 is the average?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
what's it look like in Texas?
That's looking at like 15 states. Texas, I don't want to just pull something out of my butt, so I'll get you a real answer and send it to you. But I don't. What I can tell you is this: these are some stats about Texas.
Yeah, let's just talk about Texas generally because I think it would be interesting. I mean, it's happening in Virginia, so it's not unreasonable to think that it would happen in other states. You're based in Texas. You're based in Austin.
Yes, sir.
I mean, this seems like seems like a tool that could be used by Texas.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, Texas just stood up the Texas Regulatory Efficiency Office.
Yeah.
That was SB 14, I believe, last session. I testified on that that bill when it was in the House, I recall. Great bill. I mean, really, really great bill. And they're putting in good leadership in place, seemingly. Seems like a big priority of the governors. What I can tell you is that Texas has the 5th most regulatory restrictions of any state in the country. So by restrictions, we mean if you just go through the regulatory code and you count up instances of the words prohibited, must not, shall not, required. And so this isn't a perfect metric, but it gives you a sense of when is the government saying you can't do stuff.
Yeah.
Brilliant economist named Patrick McLaughlin, it was the pioneer of this data. We ended up acquiring his company a few months ago. So I'm biased towards this set of metrics. But what he found is that number 1 is California. And then I forget the precise order, but after that, it's something like New York, New Jersey, Illinois. And then number 5 is Texas. So think about that's the company Texas keeps when you're just looking at how often the state government is prohibiting citizens and businesses.
Yeah. And not qualifying this in any sense, but I would imagine that Texas would look at that and say, blue state, blue state, blue state, blue state,
Yeah.
red state.
That's how I look at it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's, and that goes against the, how Texas is marketed. I mean, certainly there's the Texas miracle and all the business growth and everything like that. And, hearing that from you, of course, they're looking at the details might change the overall picture, of course.
That's totally right. Yeah.
But it goes against that marketing, and it might make someone question: did Texas do that in spite of all the regulations?
I think it is in spite. Yeah. I heard, and this is not a perfect metaphor, mind you, but a friend of mine who's a very wealthy person in the state of Texas made a lot of money here.
His name is Elon Musk.
No, I don't. Do not know Elon Musk. But made a point the other day that basically Texas, in some ways, is like one of the Gulf state monarchies, where it's incredibly resource rich.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's all this oil in Texas, and then in the 90s and early 2000s, they started using fracking, and they discovered all this natural gas in Texas. And it's a huge state, and there's all sorts of different biomes in the state, and so now they're finding interesting ways to do data centers and solar and so forth. But the Gulf state monarchies are deeply broken any way you would slice it. I mean, the government is backwards. It's, the people are oppressed. There's all, I hope I don't get in, someone's going to like execute me, I guess, if they watch this podcast from the Gulf. But essentially their economies are very strong, and they're succeeding in spite of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that analogy kind of works for Texas, obviously a little bit different.
Yeah.
And
we're not so oppressed or there's
not
a
at
monarchy,
all.
of course, but you're describing that there's all of our success, there's all this regulations, and we're succeeding anyway.
That's right.
And I think maybe the follow-up question is, what would it be like if we didn't have those regulations?
I think it would be a bigger economy than California.
Okay.
I think the Texas economy would in size and rate of change would surpass California's and be like the third or fourth biggest economy in the world.
Okay.
I really believe that.
I think right now we're fifth, right?
It might be fifth. Wow. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe California's fifth. I don't know. I know that California's ahead of us, but we're up there.
I mean, California is really an example of succeeding in spite of crazy government. There's just these insane restrictions everywhere in California, but you have, all of the top AI research labs, which are disproportionately driving GDP and the stock market, and they're all based in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think Texas's economy will explode. And look, I'm super bullish because the governor's made this a priority, and there's now an office inside the office of the governor in Texas, and it's a statutory office. Youngkin's was an executive order office, but there's a statutory office inside the office of the governor, and its entire job is to go scrutinize and audit the regulatory code. So, I mean, that's pretty awesome. It's a brand new thing. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Texas is the 8th largest in the world.
Okay. 8th.
I just looked it up. So I'm my own Jamie to Joe Rogan. So
impressive.
So if Texas did, so if this tool was brought to Texas, Governor Abbott, signed it into law, someone passes, SB whatever the bill number, whatever. That's 90th Texas legislature conversation. But it gets passed into law, similar to what's happening in Virginia. They want to reduce the regulations, and then some business developers, whether it be trying to build buildings or new energy resources or whatever the case may be, a data center or AI or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
This tool will be updated in real time, and they can use that. Okay, all these new regulations are gone, or old regulations are gone. I can use this now to build a new business here in Texas.
100%.
Create jobs.
And it's not actually just about the compliance cost. It's also about the uncertainty and the deterrent.
Okay.
I mean, no one even knows what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
The code is so massive and expansive and conflicting. I heard an anecdote the other day, and this is a crazy one. I might have some of the details a little bit wrong, so forgive me. But at some point in recent history, if you ran a daycare for children under the age of 6 in Texas, you had 2 state regulators. 2 departments. I believe it was HHSC and then one other department. And one of them was saying, you must have hand sanitizer in the facility or the kids will get sick. And they were looking at a statute that said, make sure the kids don't get sick. And the other regulator said, you cannot have hand sanitizer in the facility because if the kids ingest it, they're going to get sick. And they were citing that same statute that said, make sure the kids don't get sick. And so what was literally happening here in some cases was they were building 2 parallel daycare facilities. one with hand sanitizer, one without. And to be in compliance with both regulators, they were making sure that the kids spent time in both. And so if the question is,
what a nightmare.
And if the question is like, why is daycare twice as expensive as it should be, as any reasonable person would think, it's because literally the government was compelling you to build 2 parallel daycare facilities.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is an example of kind of the regulatory accretion and insanity. And it's not due to any malice or any bad actors. It's just a lack of coordination and a lack of an automatic deregulatory mechanism. This is something I talk about a lot. Every incentive is aligned to grow the regulatory code. Each legislature, each session, the legislature passes new laws. They're elected to pass laws, and they give new powers to the agencies to go solve problems. The agencies want to grow their budgets, hire new people. They also want to do right by the people of Texas. The governors are signing new executive orders. The feds are handing down new authorities and new obligations. And then in a most perverse case, industry is coming in and weaponizing regulations to capture them and keep out opponents.
Yeah.
And so the code grows and grows and grows and grows, but there's no mechanism or incentive to actually go back and clean up mistakes and take out the trash.
I wonder if this levels the playing fields for smaller businesses as well that can utilize your tech, because you brought up an interesting thing. It is, large businesses, large companies can go to the government and lobby to change regulations in their favor. And of course, they have the money to do that, so it's really easy. But even, I guess, a smaller competitor, while they can't lobby the government, they can now see what these regulations are and maybe sort of pivot ahead of time.
No, exactly. It's about having certainty and confidence.
Yeah.
And investors, venture capital money, or private equity money, whatever it is, they're not going to throw their money into a jurisdiction where they don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
And to figure it out, they would need to spend several $100,000 on lawyers to just map it out.
Right.
And so, yes, the goal is to get in government and reduce compliance burdens to essentially fight for American abundance and unleash the American economy. But if we can't do that, at least we're giving tools to industry to help them figure out what's going on so they have more confidence and certainty.
Yeah. So there's so much here, and I want to be respectful of your time. So what's the big vision? Like what do you hope happens? I mean, it sounds like with Virginia, it can make things a lot more efficient. If it were implemented here in Texas, it would be, like you said, the Texas economy could boom to, past California just for ease of business. What's the grand vision for this? What's next?
Yeah. Unleash American abundance.
Yeah.
I mean, we're super passionate about this. And this is essentially why we just closed a seed round and we're able to raise like $11 million in the past few weeks. It was because our team is very unified in I think what is a persuasive mission to investors, builders, anyone, which is about American abundance. And there's a lot of reasons to be concerned about the future of the country, the future of the country's economy. First, from a comparative perspective, you look at China and the fact that it's so much easier to build things. But then also you look at the way that AI is going, and to one of the things you mentioned at the outset about should we be afraid of AI?
I mentioned that before we recorded, but I'm glad that you brought it up because I'm going to ask you that next. But please keep going.
Okay, I'll segue into that. So, yeah, I mean, this is kind of a heterodox opinion among tech people. Yeah, I mean, we should take AI seriously and in some cases be afraid of it. It's formidable.
It sounds like lawyers should be most afraid of yours.
Well, we're lawyers in most cases are the end user of our tool.
Interesting.
So, I'm an in-house counsel at a regulated firm, and I can use this tool to help me do my job a lot better.
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer who works for Governor Youngkin and is trying to figure out how to reduce the cost of a new home in Virginia. And by the way, they were able, by simply deleting outdated, redundant, duplicative regulations, they on average reduced the cost of a new home in Virginia by $24,000 on average.
Dang.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That just changes everything for people.
Yeah. For sure.
And AI, helped them do that. So yeah, but it's a lawyer who's essentially using our tool to do that. But I think taking a bigger step on looking at AI, there's two things we should keep in mind. So if you're somebody who's on the left, you should be concerned about the fact that a few massive international corporations control these unbelievable algorithms and could use them in a perverse way to, control the economy, perfectly exploit consumers. I mean, these are things we should be afraid of if you're on the left. If you're on the right, you should be basically concerned about AI totalitarianism.
Yeah.
We're already seeing China do this. So AI that can surveil everyone in real time and then score them based on parameters set by the government and then oppress them.
Yeah.
So AI to surveil, score, and oppress. This sounds like a crazy, Orwellian future that even Orwell couldn't have dreamed of because there wasn't AI when he wrote 1984. And I'm very bullish on AI. I mean, I'm the CEO of an AI company.
Sure.
But as a builder in AI, and I hope the investors should take this seriously too. We should take seriously the formidable futures, and we should not assume that the default outcome for AI is, a good one. But what we're trying to do at Vulcan is build the optimistic future for AI, the bull case for AI that actually strengthens our republic and empowers the individual and the builder. So tools in the hands of elected officials. I mean, Governor Youngkin going in and saying, I want to delete 25% of the regulatory code. And by the way, it looks like he'll get to 50% by the time he leaves office now.
Holy smokes.
So he got to 25% in July. And now with AI, we're going to accelerate to 50%. And he leaves office in January.
Yeah.
And this is just like deleting illegal things that are still on the books. That makes the republic better. That is more in line with the founder's vision. So that's clearly a bull case, optimistic version of AI in government that makes government more accountable, more transparent, and also helps the individual builder, the bold disruptor, this vision of the rugged individual in America who can go build something and do something crazy. And so that's really what motivates our company. And I hope motivates a lot of other companies and some other really great companies in Austin motivated by the same thing, which is essentially there's a scary future for AI, but how about we go ahead and build the future for AI that actually helps strengthen American hegemony, American preeminence, and the underlying spirit of what makes America great. Accountable government, representative government, checks and balances, separation of powers, rugged individualism.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great place to end. There's so many more questions that I could ask you for sure. But that's a powerful message, and I appreciate you being here. Is there anything else you wanted to, website at least, social media?
Vulcan-tech.com. We need to update the website. We spend too much time on the product, and so the marketing materials aren't really there. And look,
it worked well enough to get Virginia on board.
That's right.
Don't sell it too short.
I appreciate that. What's the camera? If I gave a final message, is that one?
Let's do that one.
Okay. Vulcan-tech.com. If you are in a government agency, or if you work at a regulated firm and any of this is compelling to you, please email me, tanner@vulcan-tech.com. See, now I regret giving my email out, but so yeah, thanks so much for having me on, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Tanner.